the main thing to understand about this is that the X2O machine has a number of significant features. So, for example, you can put regular tap water into it, and we have two separate stages of filtration. So we're going to take out the forever chemicals, heavy metals, pesticides, chlorine, and so forth. And then we're going to go through a separate carbon block. We're going to infuse hydrogen into the water, and we're also going to make the water slightly alkaline. But the main feature is that we are infusing light into the water. So that's the first thing that you should think about. That's the main benefit, and the other features of the machine are exactly that. They're features. So what are some of the benefits that people can expect from X2O? First thing that you'll notice when you dispense the machine, and the reason this has taken us years to develop this machine, is that this started as a piece of laboratory equipment that we built in my lab that was about 3 feet wide and 9 feet long. And I had the vision with our engineering team of this has to be as simple as someone putting a glass in the machine, pressing a button, and out comes light infused water, right? So it's a little bit like when Steve Jobs went to his team and said, I want all my music in this box, figure it out, right?
Funny little thing. Yeah.
A little bit different because Steve Jobs didn't actually invent, the iPhone, but that's a different story.
Right.
In this particular case, we worked on this as a team for 2 years on how to take that laboratory prototype and put it into this simple machine that we have today. Smaller, something that fits on a desktop in a kitchen, and you press a button and you get light infused water. So quite a journey. First thing that you'll notice is that the taste is really smooth. This is an indicator of how the water molecules line up into an organized structure that allows the water to provide superior hydration. We would refer to this as a reduced surface tension. Many of you will know what that is. We reduce the surface tension, it gets into the cell, hydrates the cell. And actually, what Janine and I were talking about was that many people have a problem drinking water, and a glass of X2O goes down very, very easily because it's so smooth. Because we're getting more water into the cell, we can get a boost in energy and metabolism. So for about 3 to 5 hours after drinking a glass of X2O, you're going to notice you have more energy. And many people have to run to the bathroom after the glass because you're detoxing. X2O functions as an antioxidant. So that's another benefit. And other benefits as well, like sports performance. And of course, this has been designed to be a system. So in other words, you're going to add Celergize Morning over to X2O, and that's going to help. Then X2O acts as a delivery system. Some more of those nutrients get into the cell. And then, of course, you combine it with the benefits of our X39 patch. So this all ties together. The patches work better when people are hydrated. No surprise there. So it all comes full circle. So we can think of this as 3 technologies in one, or more, if you will, but light infusion is at the top. We filter this water through 2 different stages, and we enrich the water with hydrogen, and we give the water a slightly alkaline state. Okay, let's focus in on light. Light has been around a long time, since the creation of the universe. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. So right at the very, very beginning of Genesis. But what exactly is light? Light is the most extraordinary thing in our reality. We take it for granted because from the moment that we're born, we're exposed to light and we normalize it. But it's helpful to say that for most of recorded history, human beings have not really understood what light is. In spirituality, it's been known that we are beings of light and that God is a being of light. And that's very interesting because as we study light scientifically, the connection between the physical world and the spiritual world becomes more self-evident. So let's talk about that. And once we understand what light is, then we can begin to understand how we actually would infuse light into water. Water in and of itself is an extraordinarily unusual material. If we look at the periodic table, water actually should be a gas at room temperature. Water is the only material, I believe, that's known that will actually become less dense as it solidifies. So water will expand, and that one feature, that one single feature of water is what allows for life on planet Earth. If water became more dense like any other liquid, that means ice would settle to the bottom of a lake, and that would kill all of the life in the lake or in the ocean for that matter. So this property of water is rather magical, and it is, in fact, what allows for life on planet Earth. So we're taking two of the most unusual and magnificent materials in our world, and we're combining them. So let's go back. Let's start our journey today back at 1672. We could go further back, but let's start with Isaac Newton, one of the greatest scientists that ever lived. And the formulas that Newton created around gravitation are still used today. He was known as the preeminent scientist in his day, and he conducted experiments where his belief was that light are corpuscles or tiny streams of particles. So it's important to keep that in mind. About the same time, we had other scientists that did experiments and said, no, light is in fact a wave. But because Newton was so famous, people at that time went with the particle theory. But here we have two different sets of experiments, one seeming to prove that light is a particle and the other seeming to prove that light is a wave. Then we have an experiment that occurred in 1801 by Young, and this experiment is still talked about today, and people reproduce this today and are experimenting with variations of it, but it's called the double slit experiment. And what it seems to show is that light is in fact a wave. So in other words, you send a stream of photons or even single pulses of photons towards this barrier. The photons travel through one of these slits and creates an interference pattern. You have bands of light strips and then darker bands. And what that is showing is that you have waves that collide, and either the energy of the waves build upon themselves, making the darker strips, or they start to nullify themselves. They break apart, making the lighter colored strips. So this seemed to prove that light is in fact a wave. Now, another one of the greatest scientists of all time, James Clerk Maxwell, gave us 4 fundamental equations showing the relationship between electricity and magnetism, and that an electrical field will create a magnetic field, and a magnetic field will create an electrical field. So electromagnetic waves propagate through space in this fashion. And Maxwell said, well, let's calculate the speed of an electromagnetic wave, like a radio wave. And it came out that the speed of propagation is the speed of light. So Maxwell reasoned that if a radio wave travels at the speed of light, then light must be an electromagnetic wave. So as we would say during the pandemic, the science was settled, right? That was a famous thing to say during the pandemic. The science is settled. However, it wasn't settled because Einstein comes along in 1905. And of course, we think of Einstein as the theory of relativity, that you take a mass, a large mass like the Earth or the moon, and it creates a warping of space, and that's what creates gravity. But actually, Einstein never got a Nobel Prize for that. He got the Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect. And the photoelectric effect, Einstein said that light travels in packets called quanta. They were later renamed photons. And that the experiments were that you would take light of different frequencies. So you could take a red light or a blue light, shine it on a piece of metal like copper, and electrons would not come off the metal with the red light, but they would with the blue light. So keep this short. That indicates that light is a stream of particles. So you can see we get into an enormous problem here. We have one set of experiments by Young. We have the mathematical formulas by Maxwell showing that light is a wave. And now we have another set of experiments which are proving that light is a particle. So what is light? Is it a particle or a wave? And why does any of this matter? And what does this have to do with X2O? We have to wait a while. We have to wait to the 1940s. Richard Feynman, one of the most famous physicists of all time, along with three other scientists, gives us quantum electrodynamics. And to make a long story short, light is a quantum object. One way to think about this, we should not think of light as a wave, and we should not think about light as being like little balls that we throw, like a particle. Light is something very, very different. You can think of light as existing outside of space and time, and it will appear in our space and behave like a wave or behave like a particle, depending on the circumstances. Even the path of a photon is described in terms of an amplitude or a probability. So a photon can literally take any path, and when calculating the path of a photon, you take vectors, you sum all the vectors up, and then the probability is where that photon is going to go, and that actually matches up with classical physics. So this is all to say that this theory of quantum electrodynamics, it's the most accurately tested, most thoroughly tested principle in all of physics. I think it goes out to 11, 12, or 13 decimal points in accuracy. So this is all to say, sometimes people can be skeptical about LifeWave, even though we've got over 80 clinical studies now in the past 20 years. We can frame that around this idea that something that we live with every day, gravity, light, for most of recorded history, the greatest scientific minds of their age did not know what light was. So we shouldn't be skeptical. We should always be keeping an open mind. So now let's come full circle and talk about what this has to do with X2O. Because it's very important, because if we thought of light as being a particle or wave, there's no actual way to store the light in water. But because it's a quantum object with special properties, that means we can invent technology to take advantage of those properties and trap the photon as a virtual mass inside of opposing water molecules. So we jump ahead to Dr. Luc Montaigne, who, interestingly enough, his laboratory contacted us in about 2019 or so, right after the launch of X39. They wanted to study it. And he's a Nobel Prize winning scientist. And that's important because he's not an everyday run-of-the-mill doctor working in a lab. He was heavily criticized for his work in homeopathy because the standard medical institution doesn't want to recognize homeopathy. But he believed that he had a way of explaining this with quantum electrodynamics. And basically was homeopathy was going to trap information in coherent domains. So a quick lesson on homeopathy. What you do is let's say we're in allergy season right now. So let's say we have someone that's allergic to tree pollen. You can take the pollen, put it in water, you shake it or success it, and that sends an impact through the water. You are imprinting the water with information. You dilute it, you keep diluting it, and eventually the information of the pollen ends up in the water, and this acts as a therapy for people that have allergies. So how is this actually working? How do you create coherent domains in water? We do it in X2O. First, we treat liquid water as an open system, meaning that water molecules are actually electromagnetic dipoles. We look at the structure of the water molecule and it closely resembles an electromagnetic antenna, just like you would have for a radio or radio wave or a cell phone. So that means liquid water is capable of interacting with electromagnetic fields. Under the right conditions, and this is the important part, the water molecules can line up where they can form coherent domains. What we do with X2O is we have a precise series of wavelengths of light that we use. If you were to open the machine, you see that they're oriented in a specific way at a specific distance with a specific condition between them. And this allows for the formation of coherent domains. When we expose water to light, the water molecules now line up and they begin to oscillate. And this oscillation traps a photon as an electromagnetic wave between two adjoining water molecules. Interestingly, in quantum electrodynamics, a photon can achieve a relative mass. Photons normally don't have any mass. That's why they can reach the speed of light. But in this example, the photon actually takes on a virtual mass, which allows it to be trapped. So this explains and answers a question people have. How long will the water remain stable? This is now easy to understand. If we heat the water, like try to make coffee out of it, we're adding energy into the system, so the water is going to break down, so it will last a shorter period of time. If we expose the water to other sources of light, like sunlight, it'll start to break down. If we keep the water in the dark and we reduce the temperature, now the water will stay stable longer. So under normal conditions, keep the water out of the dark, keep it cool, the water will stay stable for several hours, 3, 4, 5 hours. So we have this specific processing method that I invented that traps photons as electromagnetic oscillations between the dipoles of water. So this is what we call coherent domain. So what happens when we drink this water? That would be the best question. We have 6 clinical studies now. And the incredible part is that we show people respond within 15 seconds of drinking the water when they're being measured. I've seen some testimonials going around where people are in front of infrared cameras. In about 1 or 2 minutes, you actually see the body changing after drinking the water. In our studies, we had over 250 people. I think it was 280 people in those studies drink our water. 100% of the people had measurable changes within minutes of drinking it. We did urine testing. To me, this was one of the most exciting things that we've done. We've done tests to show how X2O improves the electrical potential of the cells, but the urine testing is so interesting because we actually see how the metabolism improves from drinking X2O. And we don't make this claim because we're doing more work on it, but we see a connection between drinking X2O and upregulation of the energy system in the cell. And that a claim that we make is that drinking X2O improves energy production, and we're just trying to see what that pathway is. On a very, very practical level, within minutes of drinking the water, this effect lasts 3 to 5 hours, and people report better energy for that time, improved cognition, better mental clarity. It's like almost like you're waking up, you have an expanded awareness. Circulation is improving, athletic performance improves. Because the benefits last for hours, we currently recommend that you shouldn't drink the water 4 or 5 hours before you want to go to sleep. Otherwise, it may keep you awake longer than you want to. So to sum this all up, X2O is going to improve your hydration, which is a very powerful health effect. We deliver an antioxidant through the water, which is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most powerful antioxidant. The results are very quick. You don't have to wait around for weeks. Most people are going to experience benefits the first day. Supports bioelectrical effects in the body. One of the things that's closely associated with aging is a decrease in energy production and energy flow. That's all linked to mitochondrial function. So we're really excited about this because it provides one of the most basic benefits for all human beings. We recommend consuming Celergize morning with X2O. And that way X2O acts as a delivery system, getting those nutrients into the cell for enhanced benefits. And of course, all of our patches work better when the cells are properly hydrated. So X39, all of our patches, Celergize morning, X2O, they all go together into a single system.
Thank you for watching. And to learn more about this amazing technology, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.